safety, or everybody just thinks safety is common sense, right? And it's not. It's more than that. So you have to build relationships with these workers and employees that then in turn allow them to trust you to be able to make those judgment calls out on the floor. So that's realistically, that's where you need to be, right? You need to be out on the floor. That's what your day should consist of. It's being out there with them, showing them, hey, like, number one, I'm out here, I care about you.
Putting your life on the line as a police officer or somebody that's in the military, that's your job, right? But for an industrial worker, their job's not to put their life on the line every day like a police officer or somebody in the military. And so, but every 111 minutes in America, somebody loses their life because of a work-related injury. So, as I think about, the role of an environmental health and safety professional or specialist or manager or leader, you think about everything that goes into keeping your people safe on a daily basis. Walk me through some of those roles and responsibilities. What does that day-to-day look like?
In my particular role at my previous employer, it was, my day seemed to be more on the desk side, right? Like handling policies, procedures, things like that. But having said that, I did have a couple very nice gentlemen that worked underneath me. And it's all about being out on the floor, being with them, showing them or teaching them, or those coachable moments, right? Looking for the next opportunity or the next unsafe act, or even the broom that's laid over there on the ground that could be a trip hazard. It's really just driving and being out on the floor with them, right? I tried to do a little bit of that with my previous employer. It was extremely hard to do at times because, it's a lot, you're trying to run a brand new facility on top of, you've got another facility you're trying to work with too. But we tried to spend as much time as we could out on the floor. And the reason being, not just because of brooms on the floor, but you're building trust, right? You're building trust. I think Brandon Schroeder said it best. I got to watch him up there at Ohio Safety Congress, and I think it was last year. Yeah, it would have been 2022, I believe. And the one thing he said, is he always said that safety, or everybody just thinks safety is common sense, right? And it's not. It's more than that. So you have to build relationships with these workers and employees that then in turn allow them to trust you to be able to make those judgment calls out on the floor. So that's realistically, that's where you need to be, right? You need to be out on the floor. That's what your day should consist of. It's being out there with them, showing them, hey, like, number one, I'm out here, I care about you, right? So having that's the biggest, in my mind anyway, that's the biggest part of what your day should be, is out there with them. And what was nice is I had two really good guys that did a lot of that. That's pretty much all they did, actually. Besides, inspections, even in those inspection times, they were on the floor doing the inspections. And what's funny is I started to, from the time that facility started, when I was there from the growth of that facility, from when it first started to what it was, or to what it was 2 years later. The amount, it's crazy, the amount of people that just bought into safety. I'd walk out onto the floor, just to take my mind off of something, or get away from the computer for a minute, and they just come up and boom, like, ask you a question, or you just show them that you care. I tell you what, man, there's no greater feeling than that right there. To see it go from nothing to what it was, that was awesome. That was cool.
So, you'd mentioned, your job is, I guess, procedures, systems, processes, ensuring that you're implementing the right protocols, and people are following those protocols, right? And you mentioned being on the floor. So I'm guessing it's a challenge, right, to manage the back office and the front line at the same time. Speaking of, some of the challenges, like what would some of the challenges that you'd face on a daily basis be?
The biggest challenge is time management. In all reality, time management. Trying to figure out, okay, I need to be here, I need to be there, I got this to do, but I've got this policy to finish. time management was huge. And then, of course, your unexpecteds, right? It's what I called them, right? You get an injury. So then, next thing you know, I guess that's where law enforcement paid off the most for me is because, that quick change, right? To going from, hey, I'm going to sit here in front of my CAD in my cruiser and I'm going to type this report real quick, to holy cow, now I'm going to, a fatal car crash. So, it's that transition, right? So it's those challenges that can make it difficult for somebody who doesn't necessarily have the type of background that I have. Not saying that it's not possible, because it's absolutely possible. But your biggest challenge is definitely time management. And then, I hate to say it like this, I don't mean it like this, but those emergencies or heaven forbid fatalities or something like that you have to go, and devote all of your time to, which deserve all of your time.
Can you share some real life examples where your role helped save somebody's life, or you had to lean on your law enforcement training to handle a safety situation? Is there anything that jumps out?
Yeah, there is. I wouldn't necessarily say saving a life. Luckily, I've never in the safety world, I've never been put in that position. Right?
Sounds like you did your job.
Yeah, did my job. And I'm not gonna lie, it wasn't me though, right? It was quite a few of us that assisted with that particular incident. We had a gentleman that was inexperienced with a circular saw, something that we take for granted, right? Like we're men and women, right? We know how to use a circular saw. You know what I mean? Like don't stick your finger there, right? The blade is rotating at 6,000 or 8,000 RPMs. Like it can cut your finger off. The gentleman, merely cutting some wood, did not know how to use the circular saw properly, tried to use it like a miter saw, actually took the guard of the circular saw, used his finger to just barely, there was a little knob or something that the manufacturer had on the end of that guard. So instead of using the actual big lever at the top where the heavy duty guard is, he just went around, grabbed that little knob, pulled it back, and as soon as he did, he went to go and just make a miter saw cut, and the actual saw kicked back and cut his finger. And when I say cut his finger, when I got the radio call, I honestly thought I was back in law enforcement. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, it was our dispatchers are very good at what they do, right, and remaining calm on the radio. These folks were not. They were not. Oh my gosh, we got blood everywhere. So, me and let's see, at that time it was just me managing that facility by myself, so I didn't have any additional help. As I was running that way, I actually had a gentleman on a forklift who he and I both know one another from the fire service, and I'm like, come on, you're with me. I know I'm going to need help. I grab a trauma kit off the wall. I go back, respond, and this guy, he's holding his finger over a trash can. I immediately pull back the gauze and seen what I seen, and I'm like, yep, we got to go. Now, have in mind that this particular person wanted to go back to work, did not want to go to the hospital. And I'm like, you don't, like, I can't force you to go to the hospital, right? But I am going to extremely recommend that you go to the hospital. It has to happen, right? It was bad. It was really bad. That was probably the worst one that I've seen. I did have another one where a gentleman had completely drilled through his finger. And when I mean drilled through, I'm talking all the way through. And the gentleman was on blood thinners. So of course, a lot of blood everywhere. And yeah, not necessarily saved anybody's life, even though I did have a couple employees that actually did save someone's life that went into cardiac arrest at our facility. But what was awesome is the training that I had provided to them actually is what, helped them save that gentleman's life. So when you talk about rewarding, even though I wasn't a part of it, it was really cool to, hey, like I trained you on how to use an AED, I trained you on CPR, and this gentleman's here today.